I would never have thought I was into photography at all. Instagram is the reason why I'm into photography. I love fashion, I love menswear, right? I've been to some of the London Fashion Week events that they'd put on, and I just remember thinking, if the little teenage me, if that kid could see that I was here at Fashion Week, he'd have lost it. I'd have blown my mind.
Welcome to the third season of the York Creatives podcast, your chance to hear from the wide range of artists, designers, storytellers, and everyone in between who make up York's creative community. My name is Ben Porter. I'm a photographer, musician, and the founder of York Creatives. In each episode, I chat with a local creative, uncovering the lessons they've learned through the pursuit of a creative practice. We discuss the things that keep them motivated when times get tough, skills they've acquired from unlikely places, how they go about finding creative opportunities, and the systems and frameworks they use to keep themselves focused in a world filled with distraction. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Eddie, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So I've got a feeling this is going to get a bit better because we're going to talk a lot about storytelling whilst also unpacking your story as someone who works in PR and as a content creator. So is that a term you resonate with, content creator?
Yeah, it's a weird term. I find, it's things like influencer or any sort of term for things that people do online are very weird, and I don't feel like it fits me specifically, just because I just use Instagram the way anyone does. I just post pictures of stuff that I get up to, but I guess technically it is content and I do create it, so I will allow it, Ben.
Do you prefer the term visual storyteller?
Yeah, content creator it is then. Oh my god, visual storyteller.
That is what you do, though. You are telling a story with the images you take.
With images, I suppose so. And to be fair, I don't use the text. Some people write essays on Instagram, and I'm like, no one's reading that. I'm not reading that. So I don't subject anyone else to that either.
So can you explain the types of content that you create for people who've not seen your Instagram?
So I love fashion, menswear in particular. I love coffee. I love Jesus. I love architecture, photography. So yeah, I guess you get a mix of maybe less Jesus, to be fair. But you'll get a mix of all of those if you follow me. I don't have the posh cameras or anything. Ben, I mean, you're excellent at all the photography stuff. Ben's got all the cameras and everything, but I don't. I just literally just use my phone, but I love it. I've got into Reels recently. Yeah, I did it slightly reluctantly, but I quite enjoy a video now. I did film studies in sixth form, so I feel like the little 17-year-old Eddie is coming back out again 10 years later.
So what story are you trying to tell with your social media?
I guess the story of my life and what I'm up to. I'm not trying to paint any particular picture, but then we all know that any form of social media or we'll never tell the full story of anything because we're too complex to sit on on a grid, and we naturally we always put our best things forward, and I'm aware of that, and I don't think that's a bad thing. But yeah, I'm telling the story of my life, telling the story of the things I get up to, things I see, the things I see, particularly the nice things I see, and I love I live in York. I love finding little corners of York that maybe I haven't found before and taking pictures there and seeing something new, or you're walking past somewhere and then you look up and there's this statue or something, or this gargoyle or something that's just sat on the corner of a building that I've walked past 100 times and I've just never noticed it before.
So is it almost like a filter that you can see life through, in terms of some people, they really misunderstand photography and they say, you spend all your time with a camera in front of your face, why are you not enjoying life? And for me, I almost see it the other way around. It's like, no, because I'm a photographer, I notice things that other people don't notice, and then I have this filter, not as in an Instagram filter, as in this thing in my brain that says, pay attention to the small details because they are absolutely amazing. Do you think in terms of that way?
A little bit, yeah. Maybe not so much because you're a proper photographer, but you are, Ben.
The line is so blurry in terms of what is a proper photographer.
Okay. But yeah, I guess I do find myself, looking around and trying to spot things. I loved exploring a new city on my own. I love doing that, and taking pictures and just seeing what's about, and going for coffee or whatever and taking pictures. And I think I do find myself looking out for stuff, but maybe less so than before. I think when I first really got into Instagram, and I remember, and this is probably bad, but if someone was like, "Oh, hey, do you wanna go to the beach?" and my mind would almost take a picture of like what the beach would look like. Almost, I'd be like, "Oh," and I was thinking like purely in terms of content, which is a ridiculous way to live one's life. But so less of that now. But
that's something I always find fascinating about people who do take tons of pictures and then don't do anything with them. Like you see it, people at gigs stood with their phone up taking loads of video, and then you ask people, what do you do with all those gig videos? And they don't do anything with them. They just sit on the phone and maybe they watch them one night when they're a bit bored. But I've always, for me, the purpose of creating things and capturing things is always to do something with them. So I would always be making scrapbooks, or if I'm filming something, it's because I want to turn it into a video later. And yeah, that's just always something that interested me about people who don't really term themselves creative, but they're always interested in capturing things. Which I think is a whole lie anyway. I think everybody's creative if they want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
So let's cover the other side of your life then, the PR stuff. Tell me about your job. What is your job?
Okay, so I work for a brand consultancy and I'm a PR account manager. And
what does that mean?
That means I manage accounts. Long story short, we run campaigns that generate press coverage for our clients. So, in the newspaper, online, magazines, whatever, we want them to talk positively about our clients and the companies who are our clients. So our job is just to do things that will get them positively mentioned in the press and online.
And you mentioned the word campaign. So for people who are not aware of that word, can you unpack that?
Well, to be fair, we don't always run campaigns. A lot of the stuff we do it's not always like a self-contained campaign where this is campaign A, this is campaign B. A lot of the stuff we do is kind of off the cuff kind of things. Basically, the job, at least in 2022, the job of a journalist, the job of a PR is to basically make the journalist's lives easier. Because if you make a journalist's life easier, then they'll feature you because you're doing them a favor, right? So they're going to feature my client. So a lot of the time, journalists is like, "Oh, I need someone to talk about this. I need someone who can give me some tips or some expert comments on, let's say, if it's the hair stuff." So somebody at Metro or one of the women's magazines or whatever, they'll be like, "Oh, we need tips on looking after dyed hair. Like, how can you make sure your hair stays fresh when you've dyed it?" And then so I will talk to the experts at the hair care client, and they'll put something together, and then I'll give that to the journalist. So I've just saved them a job, right? Because they haven't had to go out and source someone who's going to be an expert and talk about this hair care thing. But then, so I've scratched their back, and then they've scratched mine by featuring my expert in it. So then so it means that that my client gets positive coverage in the press, and then the journalists, I've just saved them some time because journalists are so overworked, overstressed. Do you know what, when I was younger, I actually used to want to be a journalist, and I'm so pleased that I didn't. because there's a lot less money in journalism than there used to be even 20 years ago, just because when's the last time you bought a newspaper? When's the last time you paid for? Well, you probably do, but most people listening probably don't. Often pay for any form of written content. Often, not regularly.
No, I don't. To be honest, I don't. Yeah. I don't pay for written content because there's so much of it out there for free.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is bad, but that's the. Well, is it bad? That's the state of the industry.
Is this what it is? That's what it is. It's not. Well, it's bad. It's bad if you're trying to sell stuff, but it's good if you're the consumer who wants to get free content. So it's good and it's bad, but there's different ways to look at it.
And so, what was it that started you off down this path? Is there a particular memorable moment that led to you wanting to pursue a career in PR marketing and content creation?
Well, I think I'd always been a little bit interested in it. I just find it kind of fascinating as a concept. I didn't know loads about it, but I thought, yeah, that sounds fun. But very particularly when I graduated university, so I did an internship with my church for a year, and I worked part-time in a shop. And then when the internship finished, it was a year-long thing. And then I stayed at the shop basically for the next 2 years, just not really knowing what was going to happen, what I wanted to do. I think I was expecting an opportunity to fall out of the sky, and then it didn't, and I was horrified.
Why did you expect an opportunity to fall out of the sky?
Because every other opportunity thus far had fallen out of the sky.
Well, okay.
I mean, so
Very lucky.
that's like, I was just doing what I was expecting. No. I mean, to be fair, I had obviously been at school, so that's how they tend to do. And then I've been to university, and things just kind of plodded along. And the internship kind of came out of nowhere, and I kind of just expected, I've kind of expected God to provide this, what was the next thing going to be for me, and. But I was working the shop and I quite enjoyed the shop, so it's not even like I wasn't struggling. So maybe if I'd hated it, I'd have worked harder to find a job.
And you already had an interest in fashion at this point. Where would that come from?
So it's funny because if you asked me at different times, I'd have told you a different thing. I was actually thinking about it today, and there's kind of different moments. And I think, that was probably the beginning of it, and then I realized, maybe it's actually earlier than that, and maybe it's earlier than that. So I always say, watching Ugly Betty and The Devil Wears Prada, they both came out in 2006, and it was just like, in a film when like the character, he takes drugs for the first time or something, and then their pupils dilate. And that was me watching that. I was just like, wow, this is whole world of like, and I mentioned journalism earlier, and that so that they're both these films about fashion magazines. So it was like fashion and journalism. So I used to love to write, and I was like, this is it. This is amazing. There's nothing better than this.
So how old were you at that point?
So I'd have been 13. It's like 2006.
And why did that resonate with you as a 13-year-old?
It just excited me. I loved fashion. I think I knew that I loved fashion, to be fair, already. But it's just the fashion element and the writing element, and it was very glamorous and fun. The films, both the Ugly Betty and Devil Wears Prada made it look quite fun and interesting and dynamic, and it's not the same thing every day. So that really stood out to me. But there's moments, when I was younger. I think there's pictures of me as a 2-year-old, and I would enforce my mother to dress me in a 3-piece suit to go to church. So I'm like, to be fair, it's probably that was probably from the womb. Really, I can't really blame Ugly Betty.
So tell me about the journey between establishing this thing that you had in your head, this aspirational life after seeing Ugly Betty, and how it then developed from there over the next few years.
Well, obviously, I went to school, I continued going to school after watching Ugly Betty, and went to university. I studied sociology because I didn't know what I wanted to do when I left uni, so I didn't want to box myself into one practice. So I did sociology, which is like super broad, and it just doesn't really have one application. That was the point. That was the idea. Thinking that I'll come out of uni knowing exactly where I wanted to be, and then I'll just do it. And then obviously I bummed around for like the next 3 years. So if you had to go from me being a teenager, getting into PR, I bummed around after uni for a few years, but. I bumped into a friend. I worked in a shop at the time, and I bumped into a friend who I hadn't seen in quite a while. She was just visiting, and she happened to walk to my shop, and then I was like, oh my gosh, hey! And we had as luck would have it, I'd just finished my shift, so I just went for coffee with her, and we got chatting, and she worked in PR. And so she got me into PR. She said, Eddie, I think you'd be really great at this. I really think something you should do.
Why did she think you would be good at it?
I guess she knew me quite well, to be fair. So, but she didn't. I think just the personality a bit. I think there was a certain personality. I think you do need to be a bit extroverted. You do need to have a little bit of thick skin.
Why is that important?
There's a lot of rejection or being ignored by journalists. Daily. You see people on Twitter, they'll share things when journalists have said like something really mean to them, which I don't. I generally haven't had much of that, but it's just every day I'll email hundreds of people, and you're lucky if you get a handful of replies.
Wow, so this is interesting for me, someone who's not in the industry, because in my head I've had PR companies get in touch with me, whether it's for my band or for a business I run, offering PR services. And in my head, I thought, these PR companies have this big list of contacts of these journalists who they're all friends with, who they know straight away. And, if I pay them some money, then they're going to open that book and they're going to slide me straight in there. But it sounds like it's not really that easy.
Well, yeah, it isn't. It isn't. The longer you've been there, the more relationships that you will have. And that, that is the goal. Any PR wants to have, your little black book of journalists who know you and trust you. But the thing, the whole job of being a PR is to make their lives easier. They get bombarded by emails, calls all the time. So if I was a journalist and I'm like, oh, let's say Ben, you were the PR, and I'm like, oh, I've worked with Ben before, I know that he knows who I am. He's not just spamming his whole list. He's sending it to me because he knows that it's something that I could cover. So I'm more likely to come back to you next time. As opposed to if it's just like a random just inbox. These people, they just get hundreds of emails every single day. So it's a bit of both, but there was also a level of kind of cold calling or cold emailing or whatever, because that's just how things are. There's so many journalists out there, and you want to give your whatever you're pushing at the moment, you want to give it the best opportunity it can to land in as many places as it can. It's just a lot of going out with things and not loads of of getting stuff back. But.
Sure. And are you someone who's quite comfortable cold calling people? Because not everyone can do
that. Yeah, I mean, I don't like it, but I think no one of our generation likes to be on the phone, really. I don't mind it, but I don't have to do loads of cold calls. It is that thing as well. I think traditionally, even a few years ago, if you said, PR, if you ask someone in PR, they said, oh, the most important thing I do is get on the phones all the time. But the facts are most of the journalists, especially the people who cover maybe some of the lighter stories, which is the stuff that would be PR stuff, they'll often be quite young. They'll be around our age, if not younger. They hate being on the phone as much as I do. So we're just, we're stuck in this dance of we're both, neither of us are enjoying this, but we're here on the phone. Hi, I've got this, and I'm nervous. They're nervous. Like, nobody wants it. So it is easy just to email people. That said, obviously, hundreds of emails. It's harder to ignore a phone call. But then you can piss people off if they don't want to speak to you because,
So how do you stand out when you're emailing these people? Is it all about having a creative subject line that captures their interest?
Again, it's about making life easy for them, right? So you want to make it very clear very early on why this is something that's right for them. So you can't give it loads of waffle about, is this, you've got to make it very clear, like, this, I think you'll like this. This is why. This is where you'd put it. This is why it's good for you. This is what I can offer. So in the subject line, you'd probably make that as if the headline that you might expect to see, because that helps them picture it. Or just something, just saying, just very clearly in as few words as possible what they've got, what you've got. And then you want to personalize the email as much as you can. Obviously, you probably will be sending out to more than the one person, and they'll know that, and you know that. But avoid, hey there, or hey sir, sir/madam. Obviously, put the name, and you might want to mention their publication so they know that actually this person has thought of me. They're not hasn't just mail merged this to 500 people.
So I derailed us slightly by asking some questions, but I think they're important to ask for anyone who is aspiring to do this as a living. This is really useful information. So thank you for sharing.
Okay.
And to pick up back on the story,
yes.
So your friend came into the store. I thought you would be good at doing this. What happened next?
Yeah, she told me just to kind of get into it. So that was just really the kick up, up the bum that I needed to go for it. And so I started applying for jobs. She really helped me with the application process, so really helped me with my CV, and I do like a little presentation when I was applying. So she really, really helped me.
So why hadn't you applied before?
I just didn't think I was qualified, and this probably does sound dumb, but in PR, at least in this particular version of PR that we do right now, I don't know if things were different in the past, but the lowest level is an executive, right? So so junior executive, that's the entry level for PR. That's what I was when I started. But I looked at the word executive and I was like, an executive is like somebody with a corner office who is like super high up. So that generally, I think there was other things as well, but that generally just put me off. I just thought, no way, I can do that. Absolutely not. And Faith was like, that's literally the lowest role. But also just the confidence as well, just to think that this is something that I could do. The fact of not having any experience was a real turn off for me. I just thought, I've never done this. I don't know it. How could I? I just didn't think it was. I just didn't think it was something that could happen. So just having someone just to push me and to make me actually kind of go for it was very, very, very helpful. And it worked out because I work in PR now. So thank you. She's looked after me. So
when you started working in PR, did you get any training in storytelling? Because quite a lot of the job revolves around storytelling, doesn't it?
Yes, a bit. They didn't sit down and say, this is how to tell a story. But the way that you'll structure a press release, for example, for people who don't know that, it's just you're putting all the information about the campaign or whatever it is you want to get across. You put that into just a little document and you send it to the journalist. So it makes it's not like a news story. This is just all the information, really simple, plain, just really easy to digest. And then the journalist will then take that and then will then write it up into like a really beautiful story that's really lovely to read. Whereas a press release is like, these are the facts. But obviously you still have to engage their attention, because if you've got a really boring press release, they're not going to read it. So you have to, so there's an element of, the way it's structured and kind of, you want to put the most important things at the top that's going to grab their attention, but then you kind of can go into the story and kind of weave it through and whatever it is that you're trying to put across.
So it's about us trying to get it as concisely as possible without missing any of the key details.
Yeah, and with that, but also still interesting. So it's not an easy challenge.
So that links quite well to the next part of the conversation that I want to get onto, which is telling your story on social media, because there you have to get across a story that you want to tell in a very short amount of time. So you've got to cut pretty much everything apart from the stuff that is essential, which will tell the story. So tell me about your journey. When did you start creating content?
Well, I've had Instagram since 2015, which I think was quite late to the game compared to others. But I just love it. I love it as a platform. I know there's a myriad of issues with it, but I just really enjoy beautiful photography and then I guess also video elements which are more new to it. But I still don't particularly call myself a content creator. But when I remember, maybe it was 2016, and I made a point where I was like, I love fashion. I want to post about fashion stuff. And then other, things like architecture and stuff like that kind of came into it, which I wouldn't have, if you'd asked me a few years before, like the year before that, I'd have never would have said, oh, I like buildings. I just didn't cross my mind. But I guess it was, you mentioned earlier about like having that lens. And I think having that lens, that filter in your mind that makes you look out for certain things. And so that's kind of made me discover this love of, buildings and even photography as a whole. I would never have thought I was into photography at all. Instagram is the reason why I'm into photography. So as maybe 2016, 17 was when I kind of made an effort to think I'm going to post things that I think are beautiful and things that excite me, things that inspire me, as opposed to just, oh, here's my breakfast, here's what I did today. Whereas before I was using it like Facebook or just posting whatever I had been up to, where I was making an effort to post things, creative stuff and stuff that I thought was beautiful.
And was there a noticeable change in terms of the engagement that you got at that point when you made that conscious decision?
A bit. If I'm honest, a lot of my friends took the mic.
That's an important part of the story, so that will happen. So what kind of things did they say?
Well, no, it was never mean-spirited, but it's just friends just joshing about. But I can't think of any examples, but if I post a picture of, I don't know, some sort of building or whatever, and kind of be like, oh, that's so nice and things like that. But it's just friends. It's just friends being silly. But I'm not. I remember telling myself then, and it's not in like a super deep way, because I had no opposition at all. It was just my friends being silly. But I remember just thinking, well, I'm posting it for me because I like it. I'm not posting it for anyone else. And if people do like it, that's their business, and they're welcome to come. And if they don't, they're welcome to leave. But I don't particularly try and follow what other people. If I post it on my Instagram, it's because I like it, and that's kind of what it is, because it's my Instagram, right? It's no one else's. So.
Sure. So you were able to make the decision to try and grow it, but at the same time without stepping away from the things which felt authentic to you. Is that an accurate story?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, and I guess like anyone, I think we're all trying to grow it in some way or another, right? But I wouldn't say I'm not actively seeking, kind of numbers. I think when I was newish to Instagram, I did have a bit of a phase when I would, worry about, not worry is not the word, but I would be like, oh, this one got more likes than another one, that one got less likes. And it's just a miserable way it makes it less fun, right? So I really am just doing it just to document the things that I enjoy and that I like. And there's some things I post and it's like, I know that no one will like it. And I'm like, well, it's okay, this one's for me. And there's some things that I post and I know that people do like those. They tend to perform better, but I won't. But I'm not going to post that all the time to please them, because it's not for them, it's for me. So
Sure. And so has being a content creator opened any doors? Has it given you any opportunities that you think you wouldn't have had if you hadn't pursued this route of trying to grow your Instagram?
I guess so. I've occasionally will go to like events and something like that, but I think it is just putting myself out there more than others. I haven't been for a couple of seasons now, not since COVID, but I love fashion, I love menswear, right? And then I've been to some of the London Fashion Week events that they'd put on, and I just remember thinking, if the little teenage me who was watching Ugly Betty, because Ugly Betty. Fashion Week was a huge feature on Ugly Betty and Devil Wears Prada, and I thought if that kid could see that I was here at Fashion Week, he'd have lost it. I'd have blown my mind. And those opportunities came from. It wasn't like I wasn't like plucked from obscurity or anything like that. I literally just emailed loads of people, and said, please, can I come to this? Can I come to that? I'd love to, write about this or that. And I've done a little bit of writing for Fashion Week for a couple of publications. But it's just that having that, just to put myself out there, which it just wouldn't. It's something it wouldn't have crossed my mind even to think that I could even dare to email these people. I wouldn't have thought even to seek out their email addresses, talk less of to go. So yeah, I think that's just having that. Yeah, so that's definitely something that social media and kind of following these things has helped with. And there's other events and other opportunities and stuff that's come, and people I've met as well. I've met some really good friends online, and. Yeah, I know there's a lot, but I feel like I'm here like doing Instagram PR. I know there's a lot of bad on Instagram as well, and but for me it's been mostly a really positive experience because I really like it. But I'm aware that's not the same for everyone.
Sure. Okay, so 3 things I want to unpack.
Okay.
So
let's go.
Firstly, using Instagram as a tool to allow you to get to the opportunities that you want. That seems like a great idea. Having this tool, no matter whether it is a video camera or a social media platform, if it can be something which encourages you to step out of your comfort zone and go and do things which you secretly want to do, but you might not be able to do without this kind of platform. Yes, there are perhaps some downsides to platforms like this, but that's got to be, on the whole, a fairly positive thing for people that it can help them realize these types of dreams.
Yeah, for me, it's been I remember just when I first got into Instagram and I'm seeing all these this was like 2015, 16, so the rise of the influencers. So it was like this brand new concept of these beautiful people who would just travel the world and take pictures, and it was so unattainable and I just remember seeing these images and thinking that wow, these people are so cool, and after a while I realized I can just do that. They're literally, I was like, I can't fly out private jets to really posh places, but I can take a picture, in the street but in a cool street in a nice outfit. You can just do that. That's something that people can do. And finding that these things were accessible. For me that was huge. It really meant a lot to me that I was like, oh wow, I can just go and do that and just take some cool pictures and these kind of images that look like, especially back then when it was quite new and it was like, this looks like it's been pulled from a magazine. I can't believe that they're not celebrities, they're just like a normal person, but they've just gone and taken these amazing pictures. And I was like, I can take pictures, we all have a camera in our phone, there's always a camera in our pockets at 24/7, right? So yeah, that's how I find it.
So you mentioned about getting in touch with loads of people for Fashion Week. Obviously, you've got some experience in doing that, given you get in touch with people all the time in your job in PR. If you were giving other people advice on how to do that, what are some top tips for things to do and don't do when you're trying to get yourself invited to an event?
Okay, cool. That is a good question. So yeah, for me, I the first season I went to was autumn winter 18. So it was January 2018. Somebody I met online, basically, a friend of a friend, and so I'd gone down with him. So I went to literally one event, but it blew my mind. I was like, I can't believe I'm stood within 10 meters of David Gandy. It was, and then the next season, so it's twice a year, is autumn and summer. And the next season, by this time I'd got the job working in PR. So yeah, I spent I spend my days emailing journalists. And I remember just looking on the website, I just they literally just have a list of all the PRs for the different brands who run the event, and I was like, as if this is information just free, like you can just it's there for free. I couldn't believe it. I thought it would be like this super like secret, like, you know, only like David Beckham, you know, or Beyonce or something. I couldn't believe that. I just emailed every single person on the list. Please come to this event. I said, at the time I'd had a little blog that I was doing. So I said, you know, I shared a little bit about my blog. I said, this is the blog. This is what we do. I'd love to come to your show or your event and be able to, you know, cover it from my blog. Obviously, you know, thereafter, you know, it was a tiny blog that nobody read. And you know, they're after the big people, but you know, you might get lucky. They might be trying to fill up numbers, or they might be, or they, you know, or the whoever. Because I think that's what it realized. Because I realized that I was just emailing some junior executive who was in the exact same position as me, sat in a desk, overworked. You know, so I was like, you might just get lucky, and they might just you know, think nicely of you and think, oh, you know, let me help them out, and just say something nice. Just try and be nice about it, because you know, if they have a choice between two people, they're going to go with the one who's nice and the one who's not. So yeah, those are my tips. If you can, later on, I was writing for a publication, so that was like more legit than my blog, significantly more like an actual publication that existed in real life. So that was, I had a bit more success because I could say, oh, I'm writing for X and Y publication. I'd love to be able to come, but even then, you know, there was I would email like 60 people, and I'd get maybe 15 responses, maybe 20 responses. Half of them will be no's, a handful will be yeses.
So it's just a numbers game.
It is, well, yeah, I guess it is a numbers game, but it's about just give yourself the best shot. So be nice, be polite. When I'd been before as well, and if I'd written something, I'd send a link. It was like the same designer, because a lot of the times they'll be there again and again and again, the different events, the different years. And I was like, oh, last time I came, I had such a lovely time. Thank you so much for letting me come. I wrote this about you guys. I thought I loved your show. I loved how the show, you know, I loved how the clothes explored this element and that element, just to show that, you know, you do have a genuine interest in it. And just like that. But yeah, I think it's just about, just reach out, and all they can say is no. Especially when it's email, it's so easy, isn't it? Because it's not like you have to like knock on the door and then have someone say no to your face. You just most times they just won't reply. So oh, well, you just move on with your life.
So it seems like we're almost getting to a formula here, because you said it several times, both in content creation, getting invited to events, working in PR. Of course, being nice to people is really important.
It is important, man.
It's also making it easy for them. So it's putting yourself in another person's shoes, having the empathy to know what they're looking for, to know they are busy people, and to say, this is exactly what you're looking for, and this is why. Do you feel that's an accurate summary of most of the things that you do across all the different avenues, which all include storytelling?
I've never thought of it in terms of empathy. It's all like you've just described it, but I guess nobody likes their time wasted, so you do want to make it clear, because you know, if you send them a long massive essay, no one's going to read that. Nobody's got time. So you have to make it clear, this is why I'm good for this, or I am right for this, or this is why I would be of help. Or even if it's just, hey, I'd love to do this. And I know it's probably a long show, but if you can help me out, I'd really appreciate it. But yeah, don't waste people's time with long, flowery things that no one's going to read. But just be clear, be concise, and be polite, and be nice, and be personal. I think that's as well in anything, because obviously don't be overly familiar and, you know, asking about like, how's your mum, but but just, you know, let them, like, just make it clear that even though you have sent it to several people, but this one is for you, and this is what, and I love this about your brand and that about your brand. So personalize it, because it just makes it, you know, there's nothing worse than getting, especially when it's a, you know, failed mail merge, and it'll be like, dear insert name, and it's like, okay, well, they're just going to immediately delete it. They won't read it. Like, no, I wouldn't. If that came to me, I wouldn't, because it's rude.
Yeah.
So.
Or you leave someone else's link in. It's like, I really love this thing on your website. You click on it, it's someone else's website.
I've had some clangers in PR. I've emailed the journalist and said, I loved this that you covered for X publication, and they're like, that wasn't me, I don't work for that publication. And I was like, okay, sorry, yeah, never mind. I just there's no point. I was like, that was never going to happen anymore. That was the end of that conversation, because they were like, you don't even know who I am. And it was just a mistake. I just copied and pasted the wrong thing in. But yeah, I blew it.
Yeah, it happened.
But yeah, we all make mistakes.
So relating this back to content creation, because I think the formula that you mentioned in terms of making it easy for people, it's the same on social media, because people's attention is, of course, valuable to them. And if they don't find something which is entertaining or educating or inspiring to them, they're just going to move straight past it and forget you. So you've got to tell your story in a way that is very short and concise and gives them the thing that they're looking for. Do you think about this when you're posting on your social media? Do you think about the content that you create and how it will come across to other people? Or is it just a fact of, I like this and I like this because of this, and this is why other people will like it?
My sociology degree is coming out here, but we can't help but think about ourselves in the way that we're perceived to others. Like we kind of can't help. And often, the way that we think about ourselves is almost we imagine how we appear to others, right? So I think that's just human nature. We can't really deny that. But I definitely try and post more of just stuff that I personally enjoy. But then there is an element of, well, if you posted 100 the same thing all the time, people get bored, right? So and I'm like, and I'd get bored if I was scrolling through that,
Well, they do if it's exactly the same thing, but if it's variations on a theme, that's what keeps them interested.
True, very true.
Because I've had this myself. I don't call myself a content creator, but I create content. But my problem is I do it for lots of different people. Usually people pay me to do it. Mm-hmm. And so I've not tried to create my own brand because I've always been working for other people's brands. And so I just share the stuff that I make, but I'm aware that becomes very confusing for people. I'll post a certain type of content for a few weeks because that's the job that I've had. Mm-hmm. And I'll see my follower count grow because of that. And then I'll start working for a new client and I'll post some other stuff, and then all those people will leave.
I was like, what the hell is this, Ben? What is this?
Because I've not told a consistent story.
Sure, that's really valid.
That inconsistency has driven people away. Whereas I look at people like you who, yes, you change it up and you do things that you're interested in, but overall the story remains fairly consistent. It is fashion, it is architecture, it is going out and drinking coffee and meeting with friends. Do you feel that's an accurate representation of the Eddie story? Is that the story you're trying to tell?
That's my brand. Drags, literally. Ben's like, you have one personality, but okay.
No, there's like 5 things. Like that's what you expect in a person, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like because almost, so we are going a bit deeper into like the psychology and stuff, but when people look at social media profiles of people who perhaps they haven't met in person, but they do get these bits of information, it's almost like they're building like an online friendship, even though sometimes it's only one way. There's plenty of people who I feel I know and I could have a conversation with because they regularly put content out. But if I met them in the street, they'd have no idea who I was because they've not seen my content. But that doesn't change the fact that in my head, I think I know them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that.
How do you feel? How would you approach that from someone who's got a sociology degree?
Oh gosh. For me, I just embrace it. I just know it's going to happen. It's human nature, and I know that. Well, I don't know what anyone else is thinking about me, but if you looked at my Instagram, you probably would think certain things about me. And I have had people who I've met, and they've said things like, "This is a genuine thing that one of my best friends said to me," and she said, "Oh, I thought you were so cool before I met you." And I've had this so many times, well, like 3. And this is human nature. But then I look at people's and you just build an idea of what this person is, because that's all you have, and your brain automatically builds an idea of the person. Then you might meet them, they might be a little bit different to what you expected, and then I'm surprised, and it's like, well, why was I surprised? Why did I think that this one-dimensional character who I'd built in my head was going to be the real person? That was silly of me, but it's human nature. So I know there's talk about like being real and stuff like that, and that obviously I think is important. I think you shouldn't go out to deceive people on purpose, right? But I'm also aware that even the people who are like, oh yeah, I'm posting like this is my #RealMe and whatever, and no makeup selfies and stuff like that, which is really good and really valid and definitely helping people with body image issues and stuff like that. But even that's still one element. You can't post. A human being cannot be contained by 9 squares, right? So I think I'm just aware of that, so that I try and refrain from building judgments of other people. Obviously, I kind of can't help it because I'm a human being and we all do. But then I'm also aware that the people probably have certain ideas of me and who I am. I mean, I don't know if they do or not, but yeah.
But it's interesting because we like to follow people like that. Like we almost want the one-dimensional version of the person.
Yeah, do you know what? That's so true. That's really, and if they shake it up, you're like, oh, this is what I signed up for, and then you'll unfollow.
Yeah, because we do this with brands. Like I've noticed some of particularly the smaller independent brands who I follow, who, whether they're in fashion or making products and things like that, if they change their brand story and try to, refresh their brand, tell a new story, sometimes I think, I don't like that story as much as the old one. And then I stop buying from them. And obviously that's fine for the business as long as they have a new audience and so on. But as more and more people are turning themselves into brands, it's this fascinating thing where there's almost like two versions of each person. There's the real person who we know in real life, how they act in front of the friends, and there's another version of the person which we put out online.
I think we're tempted to see ourselves where there's the real me and then there's the me I put on social media. But then there isn't, but who's the real Eddie? Because the way I behave with my mum is different to the way I behave with my friends, which is different to the way I behave with my colleagues. And all of these people are the real me. I don't think I'm out there pretending, and I'm not, I don't think I'm censoring myself or putting an act on. But the different people bring out the different things of us. And even like my friends from uni, even the things we find funny is different from my friends who I've met more recently, because I went to uni 10 years ago and I've changed as a person, thankfully. But certain people bring out different things of you. And I think if we know that there isn't one true self, knowing that, then I can't then be like, oh, am I showing the true me on Instagram? Because I'm like, I don't show the true me when I meet people, and because there isn't one true me. There's different versions. I think what I'm trying to say is it's a lot more complex than Instagram could ever. Even the best, most well-meaning Instagram grammar could never show their true selves online, because how could you possibly?
Yeah, I massively agree with that. So all storytelling leaves out plenty of details. I actually wrote a blog post about it last week in terms of, you watch 24, you never see Jack Bauer go to the toilet in 24 hours in however many seasons. Because it's not relevant to the story, and we don't need that information to actually connect with the deeper meaning behind the story, which is what we as humans resonate with. We want to connect with the meaning behind the story, not just the actual physical details. And so if we do leave out the fact that we are perhaps like this on a Tuesday, but we're more like this on a Friday, and the Friday version serves the story of the people who want to take that information into their own lives and then act upon it, that's a more useful service to the person than actually giving them the information that they don't need.
He nailed it.
And how would you describe your Instagram channel?
It is mostly just things I get up to. I don't, I generally try and, say if I went to an event yesterday and I posted about that today, and I don't, because I'm trying, I don't want to sit, spend my whole time, like if I'm at the thing yesterday, I don't want to spend the whole time being there thinking, I've got to quickly post because I'm here now, because it's like, I'd rather just take a couple of pictures and then post the next day. So it does generally follow the things that I'm up to. But then that said, obviously, I love to post a throwback. I'm a big fan. And my friends are always like, oh my gosh, you went to London. Well, I did go to London yesterday, but they'll say, oh, you were there yesterday, or you were there today. And I was like, oh no, that's just a picture from a year ago.
And why is it important for you to not post while you're at the event?
I just want to, it's so cheesy. But I just want to live in the moment. I do, because it's you're there worrying like, oh, can't make sure I've got a picture and it's nice, and then you're sat there with your friends or wherever you are, and then you're there in the corner just trying to post it, and then you're editing, and and I'd much rather do it the next day. And people don't need, nobody needs that level of access to me that they need to know where I am right now. Like nobody needs that. My mother doesn't know where I am right now, so you're not going to know where I am right now. You can know where I was yesterday if you're lucky, but what's the rush, right? There's no rush. There's no need to. I'd take a couple of pictures, and I love taking pictures. So for me, that is living in the moment. I'll take my pictures, and then the next day I'll maybe have a go. I love doing that, on a weekend. Maybe Saturday morning, maybe I was somewhere on the Friday night, and then Saturday morning in bed, little edit session. I love that.
So let's talk about editing. Do you edit it all on the phone? Do you have special apps that you use? Do you transfer to laptop and back? How do you go through
Literally
that?
just on the phone. I'm very kind of low effort, low maintenance guy.
But you have quite a consistent look across your feed, which is good because not everybody can achieve that.
Thank you. So yeah, I use a couple of apps. I use one called Visco, VSCO. Yeah, and that's just editing. So it's got some preset filters and stuff, and you can play with like the brightness and the saturation and things like that. But I do that quite minimally. But I'll pick maybe a couple of filters, and I'm like, this is kind of what I'm going for at the moment, and then that might change later on. And then I use an app called Preview, I think it's called, and it will basically, it's like a fake grid, and it will just show you can move your pictures around so you can see where they'll fit. And it's, for example, I'll tend to go like light dark, just because it's a little bit of a contrast, and it makes it look a bit more put together. It's like it's a bit like a chessboard almost. And that it just looks nicer when you're scrolling down the feed. Obviously, when you're looking at the individual pictures, you don't notice what's come before because you're looking at the one picture that takes up the full screen. But when looking at the grid as a whole, the light dark is helpful.
That's super useful. Sequencing is quite important, and lots of people don't really think about that. They just sort of think, as long as this one's good and the next one's good, it'll be all right. But if you could swap them over sometimes.
It's the coherentness, I like to, make it feel like it's all coherent.
Are there any mistakes that you see people making which would be easy for them to correct?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, but then what is a mistake, Benjamin? There's maybe things that I wouldn't do. When I first got Instagram, I would just edit each picture however I felt at the time, and which was good, and that was fine. But I right now enjoy having quite a coherent theme. And one mistake is I thought that using the same filter means that all the pictures will look out the same, but they just don't, because different colors, right? There's different colors and different things. So more recently getting into that where I'll group kind of similar colors together just because that looks more coherent. Whereas I thought that if I use the same whatever filter it was, and then something that's black, a picture that's mostly black, maybe I took it at night, and then a picture of like the blue sky on the sunny day, they're not going to look the same, no matter how bad you feel, how hard you filter it.
That is a great tip, because I think a lot of people, when they start, it's almost like when you put someone in a music room with loads of pedals. If they're inexperienced, they'll just turn everything on and they'll be like, look at all these effects, look how crazy I can make everything.
Exactly.
And it's like, that's fun to play with, but then actually that's not that fun to listen to. And you're just making
it... That's a good point.
You're just making it more difficult for yourself. You're creating more work by changing things all the time, and that's creating an inconsistent story, which people are going to find more difficult to consume. So do keep it simple. Make these processes, create your look and your feel that people will start to associate with you and the brand that you're building.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So do you have photos on your roll which you think, I would like to post this, but it doesn't match my aesthetic, so I'm not going to?
Oh, yeah. Like the Preview app is full. Like, so the way it works is you link it with your Instagram, so it shows you all of your recent pictures, and then above that is all the pictures that you might want to put, and I must have 60 above at the top, but those are all that I've put there, and one day, and with a view to one day I'll eventually post. Some of them won't make it, some of them by the time I would have got around to posting, I'm bored of it, or I don't like it anymore, or it's this or it's that. But yeah, I've got maybe 60 is a bit much, but I have quite a few pictures there, and I'll just play around with them. And sometimes, especially because I do like the contrast. I do have a light and dark and a light and dark, and I might not have taken anything light for a while or not. So, but then I can there's this one, so I'll pop that one in. That can be a nice little throwback, or things that aren't particularly timestamped, like a picture of a tree or something. So that could be in. No one cares when you took that picture, and it doesn't matter. It's not like it's throwback to that time I saw a tree. Nobody really cares when that was taken, do they?
So for anybody who's perhaps new to Instagram or trying a new page for their business, things like that, are there any useful resources you recommend online? Any useful guides, tips, things like that?
Honestly, I haven't used any guides, but the apps that I mentioned earlier I found really helpful. So Preview, super helpful. There's a similar one called Unum. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. UNUM. and it just helps you plan out your grid, especially if, you know, my Instagram is a little bit more of a diary because it's the stuff that I get up to, whereas if you're a small business or any other sort of account where it's not necessarily about posting what you get up to on the daily basis, it can be, so you can plan months in ahead, right, with, you know, different content. So that would be super helpful for you guys if that's any of you. And then Visco, I use that for editing. There's obviously Canva as well. I don't use it myself, but really that's really good. I hear really good things about Canva for just putting together like infographics and stuff like that, and just images. But in terms of tips and stuff, there's loads of stuff out there, and there's loads of accounts. I think I follow one called, actually, I think it's called Reels Tips, and they'll just show you like just tips for Reels, and they're actually quite good. And there's quite a few like this where they'll if there's a particular trending sound or whatever on Reels, and it will say this is how you do this particular trend, and they'll be like 8 seconds of this, or it'll be like 0.8 seconds, and it'll be like 2 seconds of that and of this video and that clip or whatever, so you can jump on the trends. So especially if you're small, if someone who's doesn't know much about it, if maybe small business or whatever, you don't know loads about Instagram, things like that are really helpful because you can just jump on the trend, and that will probably will help your algorithms.
So in my head, I was thinking of like blogs and things like that, but actually, you don't even need to leave the platform to learn how to.
No, you don't. Yeah, absolutely. And the more I've cursed Chalice now because I've got, the more you watch them, the more Instagram says them to you. So it got to the point I was like, I don't see any actual content. I just see people teaching me how to make content when I'm scrolling. But yeah, so you don't need to leave the app. Honestly, there's a lot of people out there, and they'll say things like, "Oh, this, I suspect this trend, this sound, or this trend is going to blow up," and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. But that's something. If you're someone who you do want to grow, Instagram is pushing Reels out more than they are pushing out anything else at the moment. So if you're wanting to grow your account, then Reels is definitely something you have to do.
Is there any bad advice that you hear people give out and you think, that's never worked for me?
Well, do you know what? People, I don't know how much it is a thing now, but I remember a few years ago when there were all these accounts and they were talking about growing your thing, and they'd always say post at the same time every day. And I do that. And I can't say it's served me well, but I generally will post around the same times.
And what time is that for you?
For me, it'll be after work basically, because so it'll be between 6 and 8 p.m. So at some point between those, maybe 6 or 7, more likely. Just because it's after work, I'm not going to sit there doing all my stuff while I'm at work. Or I shouldn't anyway, if my boss is listening. Or sometimes I'll post in the morning, so I'll do like just before work, so maybe 8:30. So if people are on the train, they can have a little look. But I mean, I don't know if that's worked or not. I can tell you, but I like it now because for me that's a routine now. So it's like I know that I'm not going to sit there worrying about it at 1 p.m. or like trying to like, let me post on my lunch break or something, because I'll just wait till the end of. So I find it helpful for me personally. Has it helped my account? Who knows? I don't know, but. No one's ever commented on it.
And do you try and post every day, certain times a week?
I do try and post every day. Well, but because I have the content. If I didn't have it, I wouldn't. I'd be a lot less staring. But I take so many pictures, and I'm like, might as well post them, right? Obviously the ones that I like, but yeah, and I'm having quite a busy summer at the moment, and I'm not complaining.
You do get around.
Yeah. So I have a lot of stuff to post. So I generally post once a day, sometimes twice, but yeah. But then also, one of the tips that I have heard, they're like, be consistent. And I'm like, and I am generally consistent, but also if I miss a couple of days, like I'm not going to beat myself up.
So thank you so much. I've got lots of things that I want to try myself now for my own content, trying to make it a bit more consistent, trying to tell a bit more of a story rather than here's a project I've been working on here, here's a project I've been working on there. So for people who want to see you online, where do they go?
Great. So my Instagram handle is my name. So it's Edi Adegbola. So that's EDI ADEGBOLA. So yeah, that's on Instagram. I'm also on Twitter with the same handle, but I don't tweet that much. So yeah, maybe don't bother. But Instagram,
Instagram is the one.
Instagram is the one. Yeah, I'm a big Instagram guy. So
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put the link in the descriptions. People can just click through.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Eddie. It's been really fun.
It's been great. Cheers, Ben.